This is Harley Race, the king, the greatest wrestler on the face of God's green earth. And you're listening to In Your Head.
All right, and we're back here once again at In Your Head, and we're proud to have the return. He was one of our favorite guests of last year, one of our favorite guests of the last 10 years. We have Mario Mancini back with us.
Well, I appreciate that.
It's true. I'm not just saying it because you're back. Everybody who had listened to the show, they loved the interview, and everyone was happy to have you back on the show.
Well, it's nice to be back on the show.
Excellent. And I mentioned you'll be coming back to the New England Fan Fest at Hall of Fame coming up June 27th and at the Rhode Island Convention Center. And we've got all the information on the website, and you can click the link, and it'll take you there, and you get all the information for your tickets and whatnot. And last year, we had you on before you were inducted in the Hall of Fame. So what was that like for you to be there and be inducted into the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame?
It was unbelievable. I still haven't really shaken it. When people ask me about it, I just stop and think and go, I was inducted into the class of 2014 with Harley Race. That's ridiculous. So, for me, I remember my first wrestling match, and I was inducted with Craig Valentine, and I remember my first wrestling match on July 31st, 1984, and I was standing in the corner before the red light came on, that camera on it, and all I remembered was sitting on the floor in 1980 when I was 14, looking at my parents and my brothers and sisters saying, I'm going to do that. I'm going to be a wrestler. And I'm laughing, really. And it just hit me that I'm in the TV. I'm in the TV. There's another kid, 14-year-old kid, sitting on the floor watching me now. I'm in the TV. I'm where I used to sit and watch. I'm there now. And I kind of had that same feeling when I was up at that podium, being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and to stand up there, and I just went all the way back to 1980, and I looked down, and there's Harley Race there in the front row, and I said, we're all honoring Harley Race tonight, and everybody clapped, and then I said, I worked with Harley Race. Wow, and it just really hit me. And, being inducted into the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame was the highlight of my career. I mean, the first time I worked in Madison Square Garden, I thought that was it. That's the best it's going to get for me. But really, June 21st, 2014 was, that was the pinnacle. It really was. Joe Bruin, it's not a Mickey Mouse thing. He puts it together so professionally. And I always say in every interview, he reminds me of Vince. He does. He's the only person I've ever met in my life, aside from Vince, that really reminds me of Vince. He really does. He's like a Vince Jr. And he puts together a spectacular show and a spectacular event.
Yeah, in what ways do you mean that he reminds you of events?
Well, just the way he conducts himself.
Mm-hmm.
Through the 8 years of the World Wrestling Federation, I used to try to joke around with Vince every now and then,
Mm-hmm.
He just had that stern look on his face and kind of looked at me and just he would kind of grunt, with his eyebrows knitted together. And at the day of the event, Joe is almost untouchable, because he's so busy, and I try to rib him and everything and joke with him. He kind of looks at me with that same exact face with his eyebrows there, like, okay. You know what I mean? And just the way he conducts himself, the way he delegates duties, the way he walks around and checks the place, I mean, he wants to make sure that everything is quality and everybody's getting their money's worth and people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And, you know, he just runs a top-notch wrestling convention. He really does. And I'm very thankful for it. And I'm very modest about it. And, you know, I have my plaque up in my office and it just really, you know, very grateful to the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, which is the reason why on that day I gave him my boots and autographed, and I gave him my trunks. I think those are the trunks I worked with DiBiase with. I autographed those and I put them in a bag and I presented them to him and I said, Joe, if you ever open up a building and you have a Hall of Fame people can walk in, you know, hang these up. They're yours. And, you know, the hardest thing for any wrestler to do is hang up his boots, is give away his boots. And I was more than happy to do that because what a prestigious honor to be inducted in the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, to be a member. And you know, I got to know Joe pretty well, and we really get along. And you know, I felt confident enough to ask him about a couple other people, and that's when it really hit me hard. I asked him about a couple other people that had some years into wrestling, and he looked at me and said, no. And I went, no? And he went, no. And that's when I realized that to be a member of this thing is really special. You know, not everybody gets into this. You know, and not everybody gets inducted. You know, because you put on a pair of boots and trunks doesn't mean that you're going to end up in the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. It has to be a special thing, and I'm very proud and very fortunate to be a part of it.
Yeah. Now, when you're there, how many of your peers had you not seen for a long time, and what was that?
Oh my God! You know. You know, the first time I did it in 2013 was unbelievable because I went, you know, DiBiase didn't see me, and I didn't work with anybody more on TV than DiBiase. I worked with DiBiase, so I went up to Pat Patterson and asked him, because he said that people are going to watch his match on TV and think it's a repeat because he's worked with me for so much on TV. And he was there, and I went behind him. I poked him on the shoulder, and I said, what number are we out? And he looked behind me. He went, oh, my God, you know. And you know, it's always fun to see Howard Finkel, and what an honor he did me, inducted me into the Hall of Fame. And you know, seeing Snuka and Demolition, you know, Barry and Billy, you know, those were two of my favorite guys. You know, we actually, you know, anytime we saw our names up on the board, you know, or looked up and saw we were working together, we all got really happy, you know. And you know, seeing those guys and seeing Danny Davis and Doherty, and you know, what really got me and what really touched me is I got inducted with Jose Luis Rivera, and I haven't seen Jose Luis Rivera in years, over 20 years. And I can have the worst day, and I could have had a bad flight, or was tired driving, or, you know, had a bad meal on the road, or just in a bad mood. When I walked in that dressing room and Jose Luis Rivera was there, he got rid of that mood for me. He was the biggest jokester in the dressing room. Funny, I mean funny. I got to tell you, I went to the VIP dinner last year, and I sat with Jose, and I went back to my hotel room about 11:30, and I had to drink at least 6 waters. My throat was so dry from laughing so hard and so long that, you know, it was just incredible. And you know, I saw Neidhart. I haven't seen Neidhart in a long time, and he was inducted with us, and I spent time with him. I spent time with Greg and Valentine, and you know, it's like when I said to Joe when it was over, you know, I always get very, very depressed when it's over, and I said, Joe, we need to go to the next town now. I want to go to the next town.
Yeah.
It was almost pathetic. I said, I need to go to the next town. We're all going to pack up and just go to, like, Fall River, Massachusetts or something. And he said, no, it's over. Next year, at least you have it once a year because, life is pretty stressful. And that day and a half, I just get lost back in the 80s. And I have the time of my life, and I owe that to Joe Bruin. I find it amazing that when he first called me in 2013, I said, no, I don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, what do you mean you don't want to do it? I go, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. Thanks, but no thanks,
Mm-hmm.
He says, but you're in the WWE Encyclopedia. And I said, I am? And he said, yeah, you're in the second edition. And I said, no, I still don't want to go. I don't want to go. And, I'm always candid on my interviews. I always tell the truth to a fault. And quite honestly, I didn't want to go because I would have been devastated to sit there from 8:30 to 4 and sound like three autographs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I would have been like mortified. I wouldn't have known what to do, and that's the real reason why I didn't want to go. Because I said to Joe, "Who the hell wants to see me? No one wants to see me." He goes, "You're wrong. You're wrong. They want to see you. They ask for you. I got a guy coming from Japan just to see you." And that was 2013, and that was Shu, and I got to know him, and I saw him last year. And hello?
You go.
Yeah.
Go on. Sorry, that was a. So if someone wants to call in, wait till we get to you. Don't just call in and start interrupting. Go on, Mario.
So I got to know Shu, and he gave me teacups. They were beautiful from Japan, and Shu was a really big fan of mine. And he's the reason why I went, because Joe said, "Don't do this to me. I got a guy coming all the way from Japan just to see you." I realize now that Shu not only was the biggest wrestling fan I've ever met in my life, but he was a regular at the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. It just happened that year. What Joe really meant was, if I came, then I would be the highlight for him for that particular wrestling convention. And I'll never forget when he walked in, and my wife was sitting at my table with me, and I had told her about what Joe said, and she saw him before I did. She said, "There's an Oriental man in the middle of the room, looking very confused, looking all over the place." And he finally made eye contact with me, and he came running over to my table. Mancini. He goes, "How come you never come to Japan?" He yelled at me. I go, Shu, I was scheduled to go on a tour to Japan, and unfortunately I got injured. I couldn't make it. And I gave him everything for free and took pictures with him, and he gave me chopsticks. And then I saw him last year, and he was just as happy to see me, and we spoke, and he was there at my Hall of Fame induction, my speech, and we spoke after that, and that's when he gave me the teacups, as a gift for getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, and we hugged, and we talked some more, and the guy went home, and he passed away. And it was one of the saddest things I've ever seen, really. It still is. And hopefully I'll have something to say about that.
Yeah, because they're having
the night of June 27th at the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I believe they're having a special honor for him, and you're one of the speakers.
I am, I can't wait to do it. Listen, wrestling fans are always so impressed to see us. They really are. They're so impressed. Shu was the kind of wrestling fan where a wrestler would be impressed to see him. It's just what an appreciation he had for wrestling, for the business. He was just a super fan. I don't think I'll ever run into anybody like him again. He really was the epitome of a super fan. I mean, he's just a great guy, a very gracious human being. And that's the thing that hurts the most. He was a good human being. I mean, hopefully most of us pride ourselves on being good human beings. And you know, I'm proud to say that my 8 years in the World Wrestling Federation, I got exposed to a lot of good human beings. They're just good people. They're consummate pros. They were professionals. You had a handful that weren't.
Mm-hmm.
A handful. But for the most part, they were. And you know, that's all we can aspire to be, are good human beings. And Shu was the best. It's just a sad thing. It really is. I know it's going to hit Joe. I know it hit him hard last year, but I think it's really going to hit him hard on June 27th, because he's going to look around and he's not going to be there. You know. And Joe Bruin is a guy that really cares. He cares a lot. He cares about everything. You know, I don't think there's anything that guy doesn't care about.
I'm sure you saw different faces from 2013 and 14, and this is coming up in 2015. Did you see a lot of returning fans who came both years?
I did, but you know what? I have to tell you, this is a different animal. This Rhode Island Convention Center is a different animal. I think this is WrestleMania 1 for Joe Bruin. That's what I think. I think the other fan fests prior to this were just the garden sold out, you know, and they were great. Don't get me wrong, they were fantastic. But this is a gala spectacular, this one. This is going to be something really special. I think he's going to get quadruple the people that he used to get in prior fan fests. I think this is Joe Bruin's WrestleMania 1, and I think he's just going to continue year after year until he's the biggest and best fan fest in the United States.
Mm. It's got an amazing lineup this year, and it's had every year that I've been aware of it. And but what I always like about it is it's got a great mix of people from all different eras. So if you were a newer fan, and there's a lot of newer guys you know, and some local guys you know, and then it's got, you know, a lot of legends from the 80s and the 90s, and even guys, you know, previously. And so there's really something for everybody, for any type of wrestling fan at the convention.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, you know, this kind of wrestling convention, this kind of thing going on here, you know, if Joe looked at me and said, "Hey, yeah, you know, but Mario, your table's near the stairwell over there in the corner," I'd be like, "No problem, Joe." You know, that's what kind of lineup this guy has this year. I mean, he's got some super talent going there. So. You know, Mario Mancini is just, happy to be there, you know.
I know Jim Cornette, who we just had on recently, talked about the Fan Fest. He's a big part this year, and I don't know. Did your careers ever cross with?
Yeah, and it would never. And you know what? These days, you know, 2015, all those questions are asked to me when they. Hey, did you ever meet Edge? I'm like, no. You know, they even asked me, have you ever met The Rock? I said, yes, I did.
Yeah.
His father is a very good friend of mine, Rocky Johnson. And in January of 1987, when the Giants were in the Super Bowl, we were all in Tampa. And Vince threw a Super Bowl party in 87. I think it was the Giants against the Bills. And I met Dwayne there. I don't know, 11, 12, 13. I don't really recall, but you know, I met him then, 16, 17. I don't know how old he was, but he was a big kid, and either that or was in 85. I can't quite recall, but you know, I met him when he was a kid. And, you know, I didn't cross paths with him when he became a pro wrestler, and I never even met Bob Backlund. Bob Backlund, actually, the senior partner of the law firm, went to a golf tournament, and Backlund was there, and, I got a call in my office, line one, I picked it up, I said, can I help you? He goes, hey, it's Bob Backlund. I go, oh, hey, how you doing? That's the only time I ever met him was over the phone. I stick to my grassroots roots. I stick to the Samoans and Don Morocco and Tito Santana and Greg Valentine and Jose Luis Rivera and Demolition and Jake Roberts and Ted DiBiase and King Kong Bundy and, all those guys,
Yeah. It was it's interesting because actually one of the guests at the show, Flying Fred Curry, and I've actually heard from other wrestlers that they're trying to get on the show so they can meet him. Because he was a star to them when they were growing up, getting to wrestling, and that's that's a huge name from a totally different era, and he's going to be at the convention.
Yeah, I don't. Did he work for Vince?
He's definitely way before my day, but it was. Let me look him up. I don't know a lot of people. I just actually know that Bobby Fulton and Jim Cornette had mentioned that they grew up big fans of his, and Bobby Fulton was trying to he wants to be at the show just to meet him himself, which I just
sure.
Cool that another wrestler who was wants to actually meet another wrestler.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, I marked out completely when I met Zbyszko.
Yes,
I marked out completely, and I told him the story. I told him the story. Listen, I would have never become a professional wrestler ever if it wasn't for my late brother, Ralph, who we were living in the projects in Stanford, and it was like 1972. I was 6 years old, and he called me over to this little black and white TV. I remember the TV. He used to change it with a pair of pliers because he lost the knob. I remember it like yesterday, and he said, come here. And, because I had woken up. And he said, come here. And I said, yeah. He said, well, you can't sleep? And I said, no. And he said, well, I want you to look at the TV. And he said, I go, okay. And he goes, you know who that is? And I said, no. And he said, that's Bruno Sammartino. That's the greatest wrestler that ever lived. And I started watching it, and I fell in love with Bruno. And, I told Zbyszko, I said, you made my brother cry. You made him cry tears when you left Bruno in a pool of blood in the ring. He was bawling. And, I think if you were in front of him, he would have killed you. He goes, him and another couple million people, he goes, I got death threats. My car got wrecked. He goes, you don't know what I went through with that. He goes, it was bad. I totally marked out when I saw Zbyszko, So it was something else. It really was.
Yeah.
I marked out completely.
Mm-hmm. You just mentioned earlier about the Samoans. When you're in the ring with a Samoan, we've heard lots of stories about them being the toughest people outside of the ring. What's it like to wrestle a Samoan? Afa
and Sika were great. Afa just tried. Afa would teach you in the dressing room. Even if you weren't working with him, he watched my match once. And we were somewhere in Pennsylvania, and we were at a high school, and I came back from my match, and I asked Afa if he watched it, and he said, yeah, it was really good, kid. It was really good. I said, thank you. And he said, no problem. Just one thing. When you chop someone, I said, yeah. He said, you don't skin their chest like that. You lay it in like this. And he chopped me, and I left my feet, and about 3 feet behind me, I just smashed up against the lockers and went straight down. And he said, you got that? I said, I got it. I got it. So, but to work with them in the ring, they're just like anybody else. They're light, and you have to be awake though, because if you're stiff or you're like a piece of lead in there, if you're a weight in there, they'll lay it in to wake you up. And so you're just a little lethargic in there. You gotta. I've seen them do that to people before, and you know what? They're just doing their thing. But listen, Haku did it to me. Terry Garvin called me. Terry Garvin called me at like 11:30 in the morning at my house, and he goes, "Mario." I said, "Yeah, Terry." He goes, "We need you in Johnstown, Pennsylvania tonight." And I said, "Okay. Where's that?" He goes, "About 40 miles east of Philadelphia." He goes, "But can you leave in a half an hour?" I said, "Am I driving or am I flying?" He goes, No, drive. Well, it's 40 miles east of Pittsburgh. It's 418 miles one way.
Uh-huh.
And I was late. Monsoon looks at me and goes, "Where the hell were you?" I said, "Garvin told me this thing was 4 hours away." I go, "It's 8 hours away." Just get dressed. So I look up at the board and it says Haku via Mancini. So Haku and I got along well, and he said, "Mancini, how you doing?" And I said, "I'm just a little tired, He goes, yeah, warm up and, get that out of you, Well, evidently, it wasn't out of me. And the first 90 seconds of the match, he just got me against the ropes, and he just took his hand and he just buried it in my midsection. And that woke me up quick. For anybody who doesn't know, in the history of pro wrestling, the fans always go, I wonder if there was a real fight, who would win, I wonder, if this wasn't fake, who would really go over, And the answer is Haku. The answer is Haku. Haku would have been the reigning heavyweight champion for years because he was the toughest guy that ever entered professional wrestling. He could kill you with his bare hands. I mean, people feared him. When I say everyone. But you want to get a great laugh with somebody? It was him.
I just want to mention we had Rusty Brooks on last week, and we talked about TNT, Tuesday Night Titans, and what were your memories of being on Tuesday Night Titans?
Rusty Brooks is one of the greatest people I've ever met. What a great guy.
Yeah,
you want my Tuesday Night Titans story? Okay, yeah. I'll give it to you.
You can talk about Rusty Brooks if you like.
Yeah, no, I'll give it to you. So now I walk into Poughkeepsie, okay? And Howard Finkel comes up to me and says, "We need you in Landover, Maryland next Tuesday." I go, "For what?" "Tuesday Night Titans." I'm there like 4 or 5 months, 6 months. So now my feet aren't in the floor. I said, I'm going to get a push. I'm getting a push. Why do they want me there? I'm getting a push. This is happening quick. I'm getting a push. Why do they want me there? Why do they want me at Tuesday Night Titans? Why do they want me there? And I'm sitting there going, why? Why? And then Lombardi comes up to me and goes, "Is he going up to Landover, Maryland next Tuesday?" I said, "Yeah." And Rusty Brooks came up to me. He said, "You going up to Landover next?" I said, "Yeah." And so I go up to Howard Finkel and I go, "Hey, Howard, what kind of show is this?" He said, "It's the unsung heroes of wrestling, the losers." And my mental push was over. I wasn't the push, the dream, it was gone. Other than that, I can tell you that I borrowed my brother's suit, and he said, "I'm going to be so angry if you stretch this out." and I did because I'm twice the size of my brother. I'm the biggest person in my family. The DNA skipped a generation, and I got my grandfather's genes, and he was a big guy. So I stretched that out, but I sat right next to Vince at the at his desk there. I was the closest one to him, and Roma was next to me. And Vince looked at me and said, how do you decide what goes through your mind when you decide to sign a contract to wrestle King Kong Bundy? And then they show the clip of Bundy giving me an avalanche, and I said, listen, I'm only 18 years old. One wrong move. I used Vince's own line when I used to watch wrestling as a kid. I go, one wrong move, one slip, and I can get the pin, and my career will skyrocket. I said, but I'll always try. I'll never give up. I'll always be there, and I'll always be there to try, And then they had a little get-together with this comic, and I played Rock and Sock 'em Robots with him. He knocked my block off, and,
yeah.
He smacked me, and he said, let's settle this the manly way, and he broke up the Rock 'em Sock 'em Robots, So it was kind of, just anything you did with that business, it was fun. It was fun. The only thing that wasn't fun were the early flights. This just wasn't fun. It just wasn't, they were all 6, 7 a.m. flights because those were the cheapest. And, when you're working in Los Angeles, I remember not even going to bed one night. I worked at UNLV in Las Vegas, and the next shot was in Arizona, and it was a 20-minute flight from Vegas to Arizona. So I just stayed up all night. And I caught the flight in the morning, and when I got into Arizona, I just hit the sack. It wasn't that easy. I can remember going home after a year, and my mother going, "Well, how's the dream?" I said, "It's a job." That's my Tuesday Night Titans story there.
Yeah, we have a caller on the line, 346, and this time he didn't interrupt. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Spain, South Europe.
Okay, very cool.
This is my first time in your hotline, and I don't know really how it works. If I had to call you earlier to send a question or something, so I'm really sorry.
That's okay, it's fine. Do you have a question for Mario?
Yes, I'd like to know about if he has any stories about the gladiator, Rick Hunter.
You're going to have to repeat that for me, brother. I didn't understand what he said.
I'm sorry. If he has any stories about the gladiator, Rick Hunter.
If you have any questions, if you have any memories of the gladiator, Rick, what was the last name?
No, Hunter.
Rick Hunter.
Rick Hunter, the gladiator.
Rick Hunter,
You see wrestled with the gladiator.
No. Wasn't he an older guy, Rick Hunter?
Oh, was he an older wrestler there, caller?
He was like 14 years old. He wore a mask, and he also did wrestling.
He had what?
And he worked as a wrestler and a wrestling. At the same time, Mancini.
I do recall Rick Hunter, but so I didn't have much of a. Not that there was anything wrong with that. I didn't have much of a rapport with him in the dressing room, other than hi and bye, and I think he was a babyface. So I really never worked with him. I do remember him. I just don't have any. I don't have any war stories about him, unfortunately.
It's just Rick Hunter on the line.
Sorry?
Are you Rick Hunter?
No.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I'm sorry about So,
thank you for calling in.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you for Mario. He's one of my favorite jobbers.
Excellent.
Okay, bye, and sorry.
That's fine. Thank you. Inchman, did you have a question from the board or Facebook?
Yeah, I had one from the board. LeBlue guy, he wants to know your thoughts on wrestling The Undertaker, and are you surprised the career lasted so long?
How was it to work with The Undertaker?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, I don't know if it was I've done so many of these interviews, but obviously at the time, you really can't see what's going to happen. I'll give you an example. One of the first appearances at Hillbilly Jim was in the New Haven Coliseum, and he came out with his hair in front of his face and all leather, and his name is Harley Davidson. And you never saw Hillbilly come. It was kind of the same thing. I mean, here was, this guy that was, 6'7", 6'8", and I knew he was mean Merc in another organization, and he came here, and I just looked up at the board, and it said Taker V. Mancini, and I went up to him. I said, I'm Mario Mancini, and he said, I'm Mark. And I said, we're working together. I said, I've been here for 6 years. At that point, I was a little cocky. I said, there's nothing I can't do. I said, I've been here for 6 years, and I am here to put you over. And I said that to every new guy. I said, you don't have to kill me. You don't have to wait it. I said, I know what I'm doing. And he said, okay. And I said, what do you want to do? And he told me what he wanted to do, and he said, just one thing for me, please. And I said, sure, what is it? And he said, I'm going to walk the top rope. And I said, you're going to walk the top rope? He said, yeah. I said, like a tightrope? Yeah. He said, okay, what do you want me to do? Keep your elbow locked. Locked. When I grab your arm, when I grab your hand, he goes, if you release your elbow, I'm screwed. You have to keep it locked. I said, not a problem. He said, can you take a clothesline backwards over the top rope? I said, absolutely. I said, okay. And never done it before. At that point, I had never done it before, but nevertheless, I looked at him and said, absolutely. Because I visualized it in my mind, and I said, okay, how would I do this? And I visualized it in my mind, and the way I visualized it in my mind is what I did when I went out there, and I went backwards right over the top. And that was it. It was a good match. He said he's going to give me that reverse pile driver, and I said I've taken that many times from Don Morocco, and not a problem. And that was it. Did I think he would last 25 years? No, I didn't think he'd last 25 years at all. It's a rough business. Strongbow lasted I don't know how many years. May he rest in peace, and I miss him so much. Think about him every day. Valentine lasted a long time. Santana lasted a long time. I just didn't see Mark lasting 25 years, but God bless him. Sometimes I wish that when he gets inducted into the Hall of Fame, I'm there in the crowd. You know what I mean? Because I am the answer to that trivia question. Who was his very first match? And it was me. Great guy, nice guy, class guy, good worker. He wasn't stiff, treated me well, thanked me a million times. Good guy.
Mm-hmm. Nope. You said about, he asked if you could take this move, and you never have taken it before, but you could visualize it in your head, and you knew you could do it. along those lines, did anyone ever come up to you and like, I want to do this spot? You just thought, there's no way, I'm gonna take that.
No, and actually, that's what Roma and I teach now in our wrestling. We opened up a pro wrestling school in East Haven, Connecticut. No, listen. I can remember Strongbow called me over. He said, Mr. Reed, right? I said, yeah, I know, Butch. Yeah. He goes, well, we're having a problem. I said, what's the problem? He said he wants to do an overhead body press. And I'm like, okay. He goes, but Alice does that, and he doesn't want to slam the guy. I go, well, Butch, what do you want to do? He goes, I just want to walk away. I go, you just want to walk away? And Chief goes, yeah, you pancake.
Mm-hmm.
But we've tried it before, and it's hard for guys to do that. They have too much fear. I said, well, you got to watch your private parts there, Chief. That's a long way down on a pancake.
Mm-hmm.
Face first.
Mm.
He goes, can you do it? I go, what do you think? He goes, don't get cocky. So, Butch got me up there, and he walked away, and I stayed completely stiff, and I just tilted my left shoulder ever so slightly, and I turned my head to the right, and I pancaked, and I went back, and Chief hugged me, and was patting me on the shoulder, and grabbed my nose, and had that fatherly smile for me like he always did, because he was like a father to me. And I said, there's only one problem, Chief. He goes, what, you get hurt? I go, no. He can't work with me every night. It's the problem. Eventually, they nixed the finish.
Mm-hmm.
But, no, there was nothing. Listen, they came up to me, the last TV taping before WrestleMania 1. The last TV taping people would see before that went on. And Vince said, I need a stretcher match. And I said, okay. And I go, what do you need? He goes, Orndorff's going to pile drive me on the concrete floor. I said, okay. Orndorff's not in control of that pile driver. I am. I'm there to protect myself. And you know what? That's really what I became a pro in, protecting myself.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I really had a hard time protecting is when Savage would overshoot me. And instead of his tricep hitting me, his rib cage would go into my sternum and knock the wind out of me.
On the elbow?
I had a hard time with that. But other than that, you get into that pile driver and you got your hands behind the knees. When you go down, you flip your hands palms down. And those hands are hitting the floor, not your head. Regardless, even if he slipped and let me go, some guys get paralyzed, not me. My palms are flat down on that floor. My head never hits it. Mm-hmm. When I teach power slams in the wrestling school, Roma really perfected that power slam, so he teaches it. But what I tell the students is this, and Roma disagreed with it, and rightfully so, because I'm talking about guys that I haven't worked with before, and they want to power slam me. When I come off that rope, your arms are just guiding me over. I'm going whether you like it or not. I'm going up. I'm going over. I'm tucking my chin in midair, bending my knees. And when I go over, I'm going to land with my feet flat and my chin tucked, regardless of what you're doing. Now, if Roman's going to power slam me, I'm going to let him have my whole body, because I know he knows what he's doing. And that's what a power slam's supposed to be. You're really not supposed to jump into the guy's arms, because it could knock his timing off. It also can knock him down. The guy should really be able to take you fully and take you over. You know what I mean? So, there's a lot of different things. I protected myself.
Mm-hmm.
So, unless you're working with a guy like Flair or Harley Race, or if I'm working with Morocco or DiBiase, DiBiase he would like to come down with those sidearm punches to my forehead. And I always trusted that it was going to feel like a brush, and it always did. And I trusted Ted, and I would trust Ted today. But in other situations, listen, I was who I was. I was a professional jobber, and I perfected it. And by 1988, I said, this is as good as it's going to get. I'm not getting anything here. I'll never get anything here. And I looked over at Hercules Hernandez, and I said, I'm going to be the best damn jobber this company's ever seen. And I got all the landmarks, most of them. I got the pile driver. I got the stretcher match with Ordendorff before WrestleMania 1. The last TV taping people saw at WrestleMania 2, the last TV taping they saw was me getting 2 avalanches and 3 splashes from Bundy. Stretcher match. The last TV they saw was Savage throwing me all around the arena, over the metal barricades, back over, slamming me on the floor, throwing me back in the ring, dropping 2 elbows on me. Stretcher match. Before that WrestleMania. So I got called out, and I was happy that I was called out.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good combination in that wrestling school at Roma and I, because he will defer to me. He will defer to me on a bump. He'll say, Mario, what's this like? And, we both know the psychology because we were taught by the giants of the business. And we tell the students, listen, if you go to NXT, God bless you. If you go to the WWE, God bless you. But while you're here, you're learning our psychology. Just last week, a student got in, started the match. This is the start of the match. A backslide for a 2 count, a small package for a 2 count, and a sunset flip for a 2 count. And I stopped it, and I looked at him, and I said, I just have one question. Why do you have 3 false finishes in the beginning of a match? And he said, I don't know. And you know what, that's when, wrestling school's theory too. That's when you sit them down on the ring apron and you teach them. I'm teaching them what Strongbow taught me, what Arnold Skolin taught me, what Pat Patterson taught me, what Terry Garvin taught me, what George Scott taught me, what Gorilla Monsoon taught me. I'm teaching these people what all these people taught me about psychology. And what Roma and what Fuji taught Roma about psychology and, timing and working a match and timing. It really is an art, and if God has given you that talent to do it, it's really special. It's really, you really take pride in it, regardless of where you were and what you did in the business. Because I got to tell you, certain people went into the business for the money, and it was nothing but a work. It was a big work and a paycheck. Then you got the guys that got into it because they loved it. It was in their heart. It was in their blood, and it was something they wanted to do. And there's a difference between the two. It's like I told my other partner, Dave Paradise is the other partner, and I'll tell you guys, I don't know why I'm telling you guys this, but, I was taught he's one of my closest friends, as is Roma is, for 30 years. And I talked to him yesterday, and I said, after Tuesday's class, I looked at the canvas, and I decided that it was time to ammonia the canvas down again. I don't want anybody to get staph infection, so it's time to disinfect the canvas again. and I'm in there, disinfecting the canvas, and I'm looking around at all four corners, and you just start bawling. You just break down because it's, you just love it so much. And the other half of you is saying, damn it, I want to be 22 again. Because, listen, 2 Saturdays ago, I did a full 12-minute match with a student. And I think I was able to walk again, like normal, like by Wednesday, after that Saturday match. And, we're going into March tomorrow, and that means I'm 3.5 months away from 49 years old, and I can't do it like I used to do it, and it's sad. It really is sad, my wife is happy this year because the Fan Fest is on the 27th, and she's had to come to the other two because she's had no choice because they both fell on my birthday. As I said when I went up to the podium on June 21st, which is my birthday, I said it's the best 40th birthday present I ever got. And she's just happy because it's the 27th, and I'll actually be home for my birthday this year. But and she doesn't have to come, she doesn't have to come because she's not into it whatsoever at all. So I don't get to go over on the wife much with the wrestling thing. But they're. Howard Finkel's right. I don't have an ego. I don't. For God's sake, man, I was Mario Mancini. What kind of ego do you think I could have? The Funk Brothers they branded my ass with a branding thing with the ink. Beefcake cut my hair. Yeah. Beefcake cut my hair. When I was branded by the Funk Brothers, prior to them doing that, I'm hog-tied. Okay, so I don't have an ego, but it was professional wrestling for me was nothing but romance. Just a huge romance. I mean, I when I get into the ring and I touch those ropes, I squeeze the top rope. I squeeze it. When I go around the ring with one of the students, and I'm going to my right to lock up with them, I can hear the crowd. I can hear them. And I get really upset if they do something wrong, and I go, no. It's got to be right. Mm-hmm. It's got to be the way we say it is, because we know that's the right way. Mm-hmm. So it's just, I love it. When that ring went up in school, I looked at Roma and I said, did you ever imagine? Could you believe this? I can remember going through the New Jersey Turnpike tolls with you in 1985. I was 19 years old. Roma was like 26. I said, here we are in 2014 in this building and erecting this ring to do this all over again, and it's sad because, Roma is the greatest athlete I've ever seen in my life. Baseball, football, hockey, basketball, boxing, wrestling, tennis, you name it. Roma is the greatest athlete I've ever seen in my life. And now he has 2 titanium knees, mm-hmm. And I need a left shoulder replacement, and I got a couple herniated discs, and I got a torn medial meniscus on my left knee, and all that fun stuff, So, we do the best we can.
Now, if someone was interested in going to your wrestling school, how would they go about that?
Well, it's Paradise Alley Wrestling .com.
Mm-hmm.
It's Paradise Alley Wrestling School, and it wasn't named after my partner Dave Paradise's. Actually named after the movie, and the building's actually in an alley. So, it's in East Haven. I have to be careful about name and addresses. I mean, I don't know if you guys get heat for advertising in here.
No, you can say me.
But
it's fine.
Okay, it's 662 Cole Avenue, Unit 2, in East Haven, Connecticut. And if you're interested, call 203-410-5152, and we'll get you in there. We're very reasonable. We take payments. We're not into, we're old school, but we're not into the old school torture. A lot of, Stu Hart's a legend, but he'd shake your hand when he met you and break your arm, and you'd have to wait 6 weeks to train. Or do 500 or 600 Hindus before you go into the ring. We don't do that.
Yeah.
I always believe this, even when I talk back in the 80s, the late 80s, early 90s. I took over the wrestling school that I actually learned in. Tony Altomar had left in 1989. And they asked me if I wanted to take it, and that's when I started training guys and bringing them to TV, like Russ Greenberg, Mark Thomas, Paul Perez. I tried to train Ted Arcidi. That didn't work out too well. He just didn't work out too well. So we take you in the ring and we give you a fair chance. You learn a squat bump. And then after you learn a squat bump, you do a standing bump. And then we have you do a handstands out of the corner. And then a jogging handstand. And then a jogging one-armed handstand until you can without any hands. Then we teach you how to and hit the turnbuckles. And if you lived through that day and came back the next day, we know you're serious.
Mm-hmm. So it's you and Paul Roma, and who is the third member?
Dave Paradise.
Paradise, all right. Paradise Alley, that's Terry Funk's in that movie, isn't he?
He is. Sylvester Stallone and Terry Funk, yeah. Roma actually came up with the name with the school. He's good with that stuff. So, it's, I can't tell you, that's half of it too, going in there and being with those guys. Spending 9 hours a week or 10 hours a week with those guys, where you never thought you'd have that camaraderie again, is incredible. I even harassed Roma last year to come up to the Fan Fest and, grab a table, right next to me and sell us pictures. And he kept saying, no. And I said, that's fine. 30 years doesn't mean a damn thing. It's just my birthday. Don't come up. He went, you son of a bitch. And he came up, And, he had a good time. He saw Pete Doherty and all those guys. And A.J. Petrucci came up for me. We were in wrestling school together in 1983. Mm-hmm. And, he came up for the Hall of Fame. I was really touched by that because, I was 17 in that wrestling school. Those guys were like my brothers. A.J. Petrucci, Seth Cohen, and Dave Barbie. They're all older than me. Seth was like 24, but A.J. and Dave were in their early 30s. So they looked after me. I was just a kid. I was a senior in high school when I went to wrestling school. So, it was really a special time last year. It really was. I didn't want to leave, and although I did forget to mention Strongbow and Vince, I actually had to write something on Facebook because it bothered me so much that I continued my speech or what I forgot on Facebook. And, God, what a time that is. I mean, I just forget about everything. Everything.
Now, I know you mentioned the Chief many times here, and would you I know you said he's like a father figure to you, but if you'd just like to, explain what he really meant to you personally in your career.
Well, he's the reason why I got out. I walked into Poughkeepsie on July 31st, 1984, and Tony Altomar walked me through the dressing room. And the chief was there. He said, Mario Mancini, this is Chief J. Strongbow. You listen to everything he says. Don't question anything. You keep your mouth shut and you listen to everything he says. And I said, okay. And I looked up on the board and I was with Valentine. And my name was spelled wrong on the board. And I said, Mr. Strongbow, excuse me, Mr. Strongbow. He said, yeah. Oh, you spelled my name wrong on the board. He said, what? I said, you spelled my name wrong on the board. He goes, does it really matter? Really? I said, it matters to me. He goes, sit down and shut up. I said, okay. And I went out there and worked with Valentine, and I came back, and he had a half grin on his face, and he said, boy, kid, you really sold the hell of that figure four leg lock. Vince came in and said, you really sold the hell of that figure four leg lock. And I'm like, questioning myself if I oversold it. And it took me an hour and a half to find it on YouTube, but I found it. It's Championship Wrestling. 8/18/84. August 18th, 1984.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched it, and I did sell the hell out of that figure leg lock. Well, that was done, and on August 9th, 1984, I went to the West Warwick Music Theater in Rhode Island, and Chief was the agent. And he's going around the dressing room, he's going, no turnbuckles, no turnbuckles, no turnbuckles. And I went up to him and I said, excuse me, Mr. Strongbow, why can't we hit the turnbuckles? He goes, I said no turnbuckles. I said, I hit a really good turnbuckle now. He goes, well, good for you, kid. No turnbuckles. I said, I want to know why. And he pulled me, that was the very first time he pulled me by the back of the hair. That was his trademark with me, pull me by the back of the hair. And he would talk in my face. He goes, because the ring is on a round and it barely fits. And if you keep hitting the turnbuckle, it's going to push the ring off the round. I said, but Chief, if the first match hits 3 turnbuckles on the right, and then the second match hits 3 turnbuckles on the left, it'll stay even. He said, no turnbuckles, shut up and sit down. I said, oh, okay. And then I went out there with Schultz. And he broke my nose in 2 places. And I could take my index finger to the bridge of my nose, and it was flush against my eyeballs. You guys are doing that right now,
Yes.
Yeah. I can hit my eyeballs. All I was concerned about is I screwed up the match. And I was walking through the hallway towards the dressing room door going, was the match okay? Was the match okay? And my nose was all over my face. Was the match all right? Was the match all right? And I felt somebody, because it was still kayfabe back then.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt somebody pull me by the back of the hair and pull me into the dressing room. And he said, shut up, shut up, shut up. And he just looked at my nose and he looked at Schultz and said, I'll deal with you later. And he goes, go shower, kid, get dressed. And I showed up at TV the following week after I went through surgery and they reset my nose. And Strongbow said, what are you doing here? And I said, I want to work. I want to wrestle. And he said, can you? I said, yeah, I can breathe out of my mouth. He goes, lift your head up. He goes, your nose is bad. Both sides. I go all the way up to my brain. He goes, you can't go out there and just breathe out of your mouth. I go, yeah, I can. He goes, you're not working tonight. I go, I'm not. He goes, no. I said, okay. So I got a pair of scissors from, I forgot who I got them from, and I went up there and dug up my nose, and I started pulling the packing out. It was supposed to stay in for another, 6 days. I started pulling the packing out. It was like a magic show. It was green and yellow and purple and black, and it wouldn't stop coming out of my nose, both sides, but I finally got both out. I went back up to the chief, and I took a big, deep breath through my nose, and I said, can I wrestle now? And he said, you're crazy, kid. He goes, listen, I'm really sorry. You got your nose broken. I'm really sorry about that. I go, this isn't badminton, chief. He goes, shut up. I said, okay. So I went out there and I wrestled. And then the following week, we went to Hamilton, Ontario. And I looked up on the board and it said, Schultz v. Mancini. And a jolt just went through my body for a second. And I went into the men's room and I collected my thoughts. And I decided in the men's room, I grinded my teeth, and I decided in the men's room that I'm going to let him break it again. And my eyes started getting really wide, and I go, yeah, break it again. So I went back out there, and, Chief is staring at me. I go, why are you staring at me? He's staring at me, Chief. He goes, you going out there? I go, you got bells for my boots? You got bells for my boots? He goes, okay. And I went back out there, and it was a good match, and I came back in. And, he gave me a big hug. And, that was it. Whenever he was an agent, and, I sat there and I kept my mouth shut. He never heard any gaga from me, and those are Chief's words, gaga. Never heard of any trouble from me. He would tell me things. No one else would ever come back to him and tell him what he told me, which was paramount to Strongbow. Strongbow didn't trust anybody. No one. So whatever he told me dies with me. No one ever was able to go back up to him and say, hey, Mario told me this. Ever. And I got a lot of respect for that. And, over the years, you bring a couple sausage and pepper subs and, you find out the guy's 100% Sicilian, and it kind of made sense to me after that. And after he asked me what my real name was, I wasn't just plain an Italian. I am Italian, so, he was an Italian playing an Indian, so, there were times where, Dewey Robertson was in there and let's put him with Mancini, and Chief said, no. He's breaking people's ribs. He's not breaking that kid's ribs. The guy's nose broken, dude. He's not doing that. He kept me away from the powers of pain. Kept me away from them. Protected me in there. He took care of me in there. And, I always looked to him because between 1981 and 1984, he had some power, serious power. Like when Schultz slapped Stossel, he's the one that fired Schultz. Mm-hmm. He fired Schultz. He had some power. But when Patterson came in, that power slowly started being taken from him. And then when Mark came in, his son, briefly, and I saw he didn't stay, and Chief couldn't do anything for him, I said, I'm in a lot of trouble here. So, it was in 1992 at the Harvard Civic Center where I had that huge argument with him because I wanted to push. I said, this is wrong. I've been here for 8 years. I've done everything they told me to do and more. Everything they told me to do. I've never said no. I paid my dues. I paid my dues, Chief. He told the warlord, I told Terry this story last year. He was dying laughing. He looked at me and goes, that's a great story. So in the Harvard Civic Center in the dressing room, both dressing rooms, the doors are like 4 feet apart. So you walk from the babyface dressing room, it only takes 4 steps to get to the other dressing room. So Chief and I are back in the back where we can see these people go back and forth, but we're like 100 feet back because we're fighting. Mm-hmm. So Terry walks out. He goes, your problem is, Mancini, you didn't look like that. That's the problem. You didn't look like that. And then Dusty Rhodes walked right behind him. I said, yeah, what's his excuse? And Chief grabbed me by the back of the hair and he started swearing at me. He said, don't you ever talk about Dusty Rhodes like that again. Ever. And it's the hardest he ever had me from the back of the hair. It actually hurt. And he's like, say you're sorry. Say you're sorry. And I'm like, I'm sorry, Chief. I'm sorry. I didn't mean any disrespect. I'm sorry. And he said, get out. Get out. Get an education. Get out. It's dead. It's done. Get out. I said, okay. My last match was in Huntsville, Alabama, on April 26, 1992, against Rick Rude. I got done with that match, and I never went back. And Strongbow and I kept talking once a month. And he'd call me on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, and I'd send $100 worth of pastries to Georgia, where he lived, on Christmas. Till that year he yelled at me because he had diabetes and I didn't know it. So then I sent him a $100 diabetic, a bunch of assorted diabetic cookies. You wanted to get the Chief. It was mainly food. You know, it's funny because another thing too is he called me one time must have been in 2011 before he died, the year before he died. He always called me Mr. Mancini. Always. Always. Since the first 3 months of me being in the business. Because I was late. I'm still late now. I get to work 9:20, 9:30. I'm late. Still late guy. Mm-hmm. So I walk into the arena. You got to be there at 6:30. I walk in like at 6:45. He said, "Hey kid, can I talk to you for a minute?" I go, "Yeah, Chief." He goes, "You're always late." I go, "Chief, I'm on time." Well, what is it? I'll be dressed in 15 minutes. That's not the point. You're supposed to be here at 6:30. I go, "Chief, really? Come on." He goes, "Hey, Mario, you know who Buddy Rogers is?" I said, "Yeah, I do." He goes, "Buddy Rogers was always late to the arena." He goes, he wanted everyone to call him Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers. I go, "Oh, okay." He goes, "So what?" I hated Buddy Rogers. I hated him. I couldn't stand him. "Do you want me to hate you?" I said, "No, Chief, I don't." He goes, "Then be on time to the arenas." "Okay, Mr. Mancini." And that was it. He called me Mr. Mancini for 28 years. But my cell phone would ring and I'd look, I had him programmed on my cell phone, Chief, Mm-hmm. I'd look down, I'd say, "Oh, listen, I was 40 minutes late to my class in law school up in Massachusetts. My constitutional law professor looked at me and he goes," I walked in and he goes, "Oh, wait a minute." Oh, thank God he was a wrestling fanatic. He goes, "Oh, Mr. Terry, why are you late in front of 66 people? I go, I was on the phone. He goes, you're late to my class because you were on the phone? I said it was an important call. He goes, it's so important. Who was it? I go, Chief J. Strongbow. And he goes, really? I go, really? Not a lie. He goes, you were talking to Chief J. Strongbow? I go, yeah. He goes, okay, have a seat. Chief called me. He goes, hey, Mr. Mancini. I go, yeah, Chief, what's up? He goes, I keep blowing TVs. I go, Chief, what do you mean you keep blowing TVs? He goes, every time I have a thunderstorm, I blow my TV. I got to go and buy a new one. I go, Chief, what's the TV plugged into? He goes, what's it plugged into? What kind of question is that? Plugged into the wall. I go, Chief, you got a surge protector? A what? I go, you have a surge protector? A what? I go, Chief, you got a Radio Shack? Yeah. Go in there. Say, hi, my name's Joe. Do you have a surge protector? They'll put it right in your hands, Chief. Pay for it, go home. Plug the TV into the plug of the surge protector, and then plug the surge protector into the wall. You'll never blow another TV. Okay, Mr. Mancini, I'm going to do that right now. I go, good, Chief. You know, it came to a point where, you know, Mario Mancini and Chief J. Strongbow weren't on the phone anymore. It was just Len and Joe, you know, and he was very dear and near to my heart. I get in rough spots in my life. And, you know, after wrestling, I called Chief. I called him. He was my sensei. He was my guru. You know, he knew the gaga. He knew to get around difficult situations. He knew when somebody was trying to get over on me or they weren't, or, you know, and I'd call him and I'd ask him his advice, and he'd say, well, Mr. Mancini, this is what you're going to do about this situation. And, you know, and we would just talk sometimes and just reminisce, you know, and he was amazed at the things that I remembered. Amazed. I go, hey, Chief, remember when Harley went home one time and everything was gone from his house and his bank accounts were drained? He goes, you remember that? You remember that? I go, oh, yeah. He lost everything he had. And the guy was already over 50. I mean, he was doing that king gimmick. But he had to start saving his money all over again. Yeah. And she robbed him blind, you know, and, you know, just reminiscing about things and having some laughs and just getting advice from him. And, you know, I called him my first day of law school 20 minutes before I went to the building, and I said, hey, Chief, guess where I am? He's like, where? I go, outside my law school 20 minutes before my first class. That guy was so proud of me. He was so proud of me. You know, and it felt good. You know, it really did feel good. And you know, I was moving into the house that I'm living in right now, and it was April 2012, and I had some boxes behind my Jeep. I was putting in the back of my Jeep, and I got this text message, and it was like 7:30 at night, and I just hit it, and it said, Jay Strongbow passed away today at 4:30 p.m., and I just fell apart hard. I mean, hyperventilating. My wife came running over to me. What's wrong? What's wrong? I said, you wouldn't understand. What's wrong? What's wrong? I said, Chief J. Strongbow died. She went, oh. Gee, I thought it was your father. I go, might as well been. Yeah. You know, even her, she called me at work. I don't know, 2005, 2006. I said, your wife's on the phone. And, hello. She goes, hi, Chief, I've lost my cell phone number. My wife is a lawyer. She had an office phone in the house. She goes, I just listened to my voicemail. Some guy called the chief is looking for you. Some Indian guy. I go, I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. So I called Chief. I go, Chief, you lose my cell phone number? Yeah, I can't. I got another phone. I should have saved it. I go, well, you got it now, right? You know, it was just, he was, you know, it was up to him. it was up to him, I would have been heavyweight champion of the world. It was up to him. Because he saw this young kid, and let's face it, you know, I was in battle royals after I got my nose broken. I was in 22-man over top rope battle royals. They would get in. It was like they were handing out free money. They would just line up in a single line, and somebody would have my feet, and I'd be in a corner, and they would just chop me, chop, chop, chop. By the 11th, 12th time, my chest opened up, and I started bleeding. I'm bleeding down my stomach, down my trunks, down my shins, to my boots. I'd just go in the dressing room and shake everybody's hand with a smile and go, thank you, I can't wait to work with you again. Thank you, I can't wait to work with you again. Thank you, I can't wait to... Chief just saw this guy that refused to give up. He you know, most 18-year-olds, you got to remember something. When I entered that ring in Poughkeepsie on July 31st, 84, I had just turned 18 on June 21st. So... And then not a little over a week after that, I get my nose broken in 2 places. I mean, there were a lot of kids that are home under the covers going, I'm not going back there. They're going to kill me. I'm not going back there. You know, and Chief saw that, you know, that was definitely a test at Hamilton, Ontario. Mm-hmm. Somebody thought I was going to unleash my boots and go, I'm not going back in there with Schultz. I'm not doing that. But they found out different. I didn't care. Because to this day, as I sit here talking to you today, I have the same mentality. In order to beat me, you're going to have to kill me. That's the only way you're going to beat me, is to kill me. Because I'm not giving up. I took the bar exam 5 times. 5. Mm-hmm. Shut my life down for 2 years. Bar exam's only twice a year. Certainly after the 3rd time I failed it, he's going to quit. After the 4th time I failed it, well, he's really done now. Wrong guy. Wrong guy. On May 11th, 2012, 10:03 a.m., I checked the bar results. My name was on it. Because you just don't quit. You don't. That's not my language. That doesn't exist in my life. You don't quit. Now there's a fine line. You get a 3-point stance, and you walk by me and go, hey, Mario, what are you doing? And I go, hey, I'm trying to knock down this brick wall. You go, you're really not going to do that. You're really not. Well, I got to try. I'm not going to quit. That's ignorance. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about having a vision, knowing you can do something, and it's tearing you limb from limb. But you just don't quit. You don't. And that's what makes a successful professional wrestler. That's basically what makes a successful human being. As I said, as long as it's not ignorance. I mean, at almost 49, if I turned around and said, I think I'm going to be a cardiologist now and do open heart surgery, that, you know, that's the brick wall. That's not happening. You know what I mean? So there's a fine line. But thank God I never crossed that fine line. You just never, ever quit.
Well, we want to thank you for coming on tonight, and we hope everyone comes out for New England Fan Fest Hall of Fame. It's coming up June 27th at the Rhode Island Convention Center, and all the information is at newenglandfanfest.com. And it's always a pleasure to have you on the show and talk to you.
Hey, guys, it's always a pleasure to have this. I mean, I might have mentioned Lombardi, but we didn't get into it. Thank God, because then I would have really got cranky, but I still maintain if the son of a bitch gets inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame before I do, I will be going down to Stanford. I will be going down to Stanford.
Uh-huh. Have you ever heard the Kamala song, Pushin' and Pullin'?
The Kamala song?
Yeah, Kamala has a song about Steve Lombardi called Push It and Pull It.
No.
I will send you the link later on.
It's just that, I do YouTube a lot, and I became friends with Sal Balamo on Facebook, and Don Morocco. But Sal's another gracious guy. He's just a good guy,
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that we debuted against Demolition.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going through other things. There was me and Lombardi tag team, and I couldn't even watch the match.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't even watch it. I couldn't watch it. He absolutely disgusts me. It's just that the way he got his break is, it's just, you know what? You had other superstars there that were already established. I never had a judgment on those guys. I mention those guys because I have respect for them, because they were gay, but they were already on top.
Mm-hmm.
They were already over big time. Okay, and they were practicing their sexuality. Okay, Lombardi had he did it specifically to get over. He did it to get over.
Mm-hmm.
Like Roma said to me back in the 80s was, he didn't say anything, they don't want you to do anything to them. They just want you to lay in the bed for a while so they can play with it. And I said, I'll keep doing jobs, Roma. I said, I'll keep doing jobs. I go, because Roma was blessed. He didn't have to do that because he was a bodybuilder before he got into wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So he already had it, man. He already had it on him. He had the goods. I'm just, Lasagna and, 17-year-old kid go to wrestling school, I got no juice. I got no steroids. I don't know how to lift weights. I don't I'm not doing that. By 88, 89, I did. I started getting there, started powerlifting, and everything was great. Mm-hmm. I didn't have that big background where I spent 5 or 6 years in the gym before, what do you want to do? Start going to the gym when I was 11? I broke into when I was 18. So, he was already there. He didn't have to do any of that stuff on Lombardi. Don't. God bless Joe Bruin. Can't wait to see him June 27th.
Mm-hmm.
The Rhode Island Convention Center, New England Fan Fest, New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. I am Mario Mancini. I am a proud member of the 2014 New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. I thank you guys, and hopefully I'll see you on the 27th.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right, brother.
Hey, this is Rusty Brooks, former WWE wrestler and independent star. You're listening to In Your Head Wrestling Radio.